I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, I explain what I was doing in Arizona and why there weren't any shows at the end of last week.
Let's do this.
So I got into work yesterday, this morning, like I do, because I skipped work yesterday. And I'm sitting in my office, going over email, getting ready to maybe do some actual work, and an email pops up from the person at the front desk. And normally I don't need to read an email from the person at the front desk because no one's going to come and see me in my office. But the topic of this email intrigued me, and I decided to read it. The topic read, Warning Skunk.
Uh-huh.
So I open this email, and it says, not to alarm anyone, but a skunk was spotted on the first floor somewhere in the atrium.
In the building.
Yes.
How to get in.
I'll get to that.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, I wonder how that happened. And the email goes on to explain, do not attempt to catch or bother the skunk. Just stay in your office. If you really feel like leaving, you're free to leave. But there's a skunk in the building, just so you all know.
Just the animal people come and take it away.
Well, I stayed in my cubicle.
Did you see the skunk?
No, I didn't see the skunk.
Oh, what kind of... You might as well not even tell the story. What the hell?
Well, the thing is, I that was not what I expected to happen this morning. But yeah, about 3 hours later, another email came back saying, the skunk has been found, animal control has taken it away, it was rather happy with the cat food we fed it, and it is going to be released about 12 miles north of here, and hopefully will not
cat
return.
Food?
Apparently.
I didn't know that.
They had a live trap, they filled it with cat food.
What the hell do skunks eat?
You should probably go to whatskunkseat.com.
That's what I'm about to do. What do skunks eat? Google?
But apparently cat food. And yeah, the skunk was found, apparently, because the building I work in used to be a warehouse, like turn of the century, whatever, in this industrial complex, and they turned it into offices. And this skunk just found a way in. They found the hole, they filled it in, and hopefully no more skunks will wander into my office looking for food.
Skunks eat mostly insects, many of which are pests to humans. They are therefore beneficial to have around. They also eat some plant material, including wild fruits, apples, and corn. In winter and spring, they eat mice and the eggs of ground-nesting birds.
Uh-huh. So, apparently cat food should be added to that list.
I think, but this isn't Wikipedia, so I can't. This is pleasebekind.com/skunk.html.
As opposed to whatbadgerseat.com, which I believe is still up.
What?
You don't remember?
I got all about that website.
You did forget. It's still there.
There it is. There it is.
Kind of like Zombo. It's just, I think that's going to be around forever.
Yep. It's got a little Simpsons logo at the bottom.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Right. So, anyway, skunk-related news aside, we've been talking all week, except Tuesday, where we keep forgetting. But
oh, you remembered. I totally forgot.
A week from now, so probably the week after next, we're going to do it, unless, your questions all suck. But so far, so good. Instead of just doing a questions show, Ask Rim and Scott, we're doing a questions week. So, this being Thursday night, if you have anything you want to ask us from, I don't know, how do you feel about Barack Obama's ring, to why did you get into podcasting, go right ahead and ask it, and we might just answer.
Yep, you can ask any question. It's not a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday question.
Nothing is out of bounds.
Nope. And we will decide whether we will answer it or not on the show. And if you want your question to be answered, I recommend you make it a question that could be answered quickly. A question that is not stupid. Do not put an essay before, after, or around your question, making it difficult for us to figure out what your question is.
If your question can be answered by Google on the first page, we might not answer it, or we might answer it just to make you look stupid.
If your question was answered in a previous episode of Geeknights, the same is also true.
Unless, of course, the answer has changed.
Which it could very well be possible.
Yes, very much.
Yeah. But yeah, ask the questions. You can send them by email to geeknights@frontrecruit.com, or in the forum. We have 4 different threads, one for each question show.
I think it should
ask the question in the appropriate thread.
I think it should be self-evident which thread is for which kinds of questions.
Unless you can't read, in which case don't ask a question, please.
I can't read or write.
Yeah, please don't ask questions if you can't read. The only question you should be asking is, how do I learn to read and write?
All right, so...
The answer is kindergarten.
But anyway, it is Thursday. I mean, we can talk about whatever we want. So,
which is good, because there's not much to talk about of anything specific.
I got a lot of tech news, but I got to hold off on that.
I don't really have that much tech news. Okay, so you know those guys. You know most dumb people out there. Now, I know dumb people is a relative term. You know they can't fix their own computer if it breaks. You know if there's an error message and it won't go away, and they can't make their computer do what they want it to do, they have no clue what to do.
It's just like if the check engine light comes in my car, I don't know what to do. All I know is crap. Got to go to a mechanic.
Or if it doesn't turn, your car doesn't start. What do? You don't know.
I go to the mechanic and I
Right.
say, my car doesn't start. Fix it.
Exactly. So, you know, normal people who were not lucky enough to offspring computer professionals or be offspring of computer professionals or be related to someone who has offsprung computer professionals, etc., they really don't have anywhere to turn most of the time. And they have to call up, you know, the Geek Squad or what are those other ones? Fire Dog.
What were you saying? You don't have any tech news.
Nerd something. This isn't the news, really. It's sort of a thing of the day I turned into a news.
Uh-huh.
So the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Company, so like the BBC of Canada, they did on their news a little expose of all these computer repair, nerdy, geeky companies that will come to your house to fix your computer.
Huh. I wonder how that turned out.
So they went to a local college, which seemed like an okay college, you know, and they said, okay, break this computer in one way. And they broke the computer by putting in one bad stick of RAM, right? Now, you and me know that if you have a bad stick of RAM, the computer, when you try to turn it on, might go beep, beep, beep. It also, depending on...
Well, it might go beep, 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 depending on...
It'll beep. It'll either beep oddly, or it'll start to boot, and then the BIOS will give you all some sort of screwed up errors, right? So those would be because I'm a computer professional, I know those would be the symptoms of the only stick of RAM in your computer being bad.
Yep, now if you have multiple sticks and one's bad, it'll just boot and you won't have enough RAM, most likely.
Yep, it'll just be like, if you have two 128 meg sticks totaling 256 and one of them's bad, your computer will either say 128 when it starts up, or it'll work and then it'll crash randomly, which really sucks. So they call up 10 different places to come and check out this computer in this one apartment.
All right, now, I just want to point out before Scott says, because I don't know what the results are, but this is such a this isn't a trick question. This is such a trivial problem. Any computer professional, even a non-professional.
It would have taken, I would have had to investigate. It would have taken me like 15 minutes of trying different things to figure out, is it the motherboard? Is it the RAM stick? Is it the video card maybe?
But this is not a difficult question. It is not a difficult thing to solve.
Given enough time to poke at the computer, I would have gotten the correct answer 100% of the time. And any standard PC equipment.
Plus the fact that they make it so that there's no complementary problems is huge.
Yep, there's no other problem but the RAM stick. All right, so they call 10 people, all right? Guess how many of the 10 people got it right?
All 10.
No.
None of them. I figured you'd only ask if the number was really high or really low.
No, it's neither. It's 3. 3 of them knew it was a bad RAM stick. 7 of them got it wrong.
You know, that's kind of better than I expected. What did the 7 say? Because
some of them were just like, motherboard's dead. You know, and obviously that's an easy thing to mistake if you're not well trained and you're not good at the troubleshooting. But
then why are you in the computer repair business? You're just ripping people off. Ripping people off.
No, you think that is bad. One of the guys was like, yeah, hard drive's bad. You're gonna need to pay like 100. You know, he's like, you got to pay me $100 for my time right now, and replacement hard drive $140.
Wow. Even at my inflated consulting rate, the 10 or 15 minutes it would take me to solve this, plus the cost of a stick of RAM would be less than that.
Plus, it was like an average Dell. The stick of RAM would have been like $30.
Yeah, if that. He probably has one laying around.
Probably. But yeah, some of the guys say some pretty crazy stuff, and basically what they do is in this video they expose the fact that most of the people doing this job are not computer professionals. They have almost no training whatsoever.
Except that one guy who was obviously just a con man.
Well, some of them were con men, and some of them were poorly trained, and some, you know. And I think the problem here is that this job does not pay enough, unless you're scamming people, to basically get someone who actually knows what they're doing to do that job.
Well, this is a broader problem that I've run into in my life a lot, and I think it's just because IT and computers and all this are kind of new, and cars have been around a while. The average person, if their car breaks, they think, crap, I'm going to have to spend a lot of money to get this fixed. And then they go to a mechanic, and they say, all right, mechanic, I don't know what's wrong with my car. I'm going to trust you to fix it for me because I know I can't do it myself, and you're the only one qualified. And while there were a lot of scummy mechanics who ripped people off, there's also a lot of mechanics who did the right thing. And
well, the other thing is that it's not like a mechanic can go and make like more money elsewhere without getting more skills.
True.
It's like
I mean,
the skills required to do this computer repair job are the same skills required to like not do my job, but do a similarly paying job.
you need the equivalent of an associate's degree education to do basic computer repair. It's not that hard.
But with an associate's degree, you could work as like, you know, a job that pays a lot more money than computer repair guy for the Geek Squad.
Dude, I'll be honest. With an associate's degree, you could do my job.
Yeah. And Rim's job pays more than Geek Squad.
My job pays twice as much as Geek Squad.
The thing is, the only people who do this job are, say, high school and college kids who, you know what they're doing, but they can't get a real job yet. Or people who aren't qualified. Or people ripping you off because then they can make enough money.
In a lot of places, there's regulation as to who can be a mechanic and what they're allowed to offer. And also, there's just a lot of... It seems like people, customer side too, know a mechanic's going to be expensive, and most of the time just find a good mechanic and pay whatever they ask and expect it to be a lot. But a lot of times, people who want a computer repaired, they look at what we do and say, "Oh, you just looked at it for a second and flipped the switch. I could have done that. Why should I pay you $100?"
Another problem here is that a car costs, say, $20,000, right? And parts of a car, they're big and mechanical, and you got to get your hands dirty, and it looks like hard work. And
it is hard work.
Yeah,
we're not pretending it isn't.
No. But, paying $800 to fix a $20,000 car makes sense, right? And, whether that $800 is the rare, skilled knowledge of the laborer or the parts doesn't really matter to you because the price compared to the price of the whole thing that you're fixing makes sense. For a computer... right? A $1,000 computer, you might need a $50 repair, like a RAM stick. But the price of the labor of the person makes it seem stupid. You're going to have to, if you want me to come to your house, spend the time to figure it out, deal with you, get the RAM stick, install it, give it back.
You notice Scott paused at that point.
Skills.
There are a lot of tech jobs out there that both of us could do that would pay quite a bit of money, that sort of thing. But honestly, dealing with a lot of people is just not worth any amount of money.
And when you add it up, it doesn't make sense for the people getting their computer repaired to have me do it, because the cost to have me do it versus untrained guy makes it you're better off buying a new computer than getting me to fix it.
But then untrained guy might not be trained.
That's why the only way to get your computer fixed, if you don't know what you're doing, is either A, learn something, or B, find me in high school or college while it's still worth it to pay me to do it.
Well, I think one big difference, and I think this will be good in the long run, is that to be a mechanic, to fix problems with cars, you need a lot of very expensive tools, a lot of equipment, a lot of physical knowledge in addition to technical knowledge. So it's out of the realm for the average person to fix their car.
Not just physical knowledge, but tools. You need a lift. It's sure, I might read all these books on mechanics and everything about it and buy a tool set at Home Depot, but I don't have a lift. That guy has a lift. No one can, it's not like everyone can afford to buy a lift.
Yeah, but
one guy buys a lift and everyone uses his,
but
he makes
computers,
money.
It doesn't, you really don't
Everyone
need
can own a
anything.
Phillips screwdriver.
Yeah, you don't need much. At most, if you really want to repair computers, you need one working computer from which you can take known working parts and stick them in possibly not working computers.
You also need a Phillips screwdriver.
Possibly a flathead, a little one to pop off heat sinks.
And an internet connection with that working computer so you can go to newegg.com.
Or possibly Google.
Mostly newegg.com.
Yeah. I don't know, it's a complicated thing, because like I was kind of hinting at, I think the root issue is that people, by and large, don't understand how complicated computers are, and as a result, they don't they look at what we do and they think, wow, that was easy, why do I pay you? When in fact, it's not quite so easy.
If it's so easy, why'd you call me?
Yeah, but they're more willing to pay for other things like cars or, house repair.
Because the car means a lot more to them than their computer. And the car costs a lot more than their computer.
But the computer does mean a lot to them because they really need those pictures and they really care about it. It's kind of like people want something and they really want it and it's important to them, but they're not willing to pay what it costs to have that thing.
So it doesn't mean that much to them. It means less than that to them.
Well, that's the problem. It means just as much, but they decide they're not willing to pay, and as a result, that's a market where there's no money to be made by skilled people.
And it's not even worth it. Even if people were willing to pay, The amount they're willing to pay could buy them a new computer.
Yeah.
The amount that they would require me to get to do the job.
I think there could be a happy medium where the prices could be reasonable and yet people get help.
What it will take is an increased number of people with the skills to repair the computers. Thus, the price that we can get, like, that would be like a job you could get, and you couldn't really make any more money without getting more skills.
I think another problem is just that computers, despite people don't realize that they take as much, if not more, maintenance than a car. I mean, people, when they have a car, they know, all right, I got to get an oil change every X miles.
I got to rotate my tires.
I got to buy new tires periodically.
Sometimes they maintain them more than they have to because someone scams them into doing it. Like, you go to Valvoline and like, hey, you want to replace that filter? You only have to replace 40,000 miles even though you've only had it for 1,000 miles?
But
yeah, you want to replace that filter, $40.
People expect that they have to do maintenance on a car. And if they don't know how to do it themselves, they expect to pay someone else. Not a lot of money, but they got to pay something. With computers, most people don't realize there's maintenance involved. They buy a computer and they just assume it'll last forever. And
yeah,
they
it's
never
like
have
they
to
don't do
anything.
maintenance on their DVD players or their stereos or
Even though
their televisions.
DVD players and stereos and televisions last a lot longer if you do periodic maintenance.
They do, but they're not expected to have to do maintenance on those things. And in fact, many of those things will say, don't maintain me, don't open me up. Whereas with a computer, like a personal computer, it's not a Mac, I guess, you have to do maintenance. And no one knows how or is told to do so or anything.
But see, if people knew that maintenance had to be done, if that was part of the global...
Then these computer repair guys be out of a job.
Well, no, if there were a global consciousness among people who had computers that there was some sort of maintenance that had to be done periodically, that periodic maintenance can be done by much less skilled people for much less money than actually fixing the problem that comes from a lack of maintenance.
That is true. That is true.
If we could just convince people that computers are not these just boxes like DVD players and that they're not simple and you can use one and you can not know a lot about it, but you have to be willing to pay someone if you're not willing to learn. It's one of the two. Learn something, pay someone. If you're not willing to do either, your computer is always going to crap out on you and there's nothing you can do about it.
But don't get ripped off by one of these guys.
Yeah, but how are you going to know if you're going to get ripped off because you don't know anything?
Ask us.
Right. So I'm not going to talk about this much, but our friend James Randi, the most crotchety man in the world, has the James Randi Challenge. We talked about this a while ago, but he's kind of switched it up, and he's ignoring the batshit crazy people because there's nothing to be gained by slamming those people down.
Well, he's paid attention to the batshit crazy people for how many years? And he's just fed up with it, and they're a waste of his time. People come up, they're like, I can douse. Watch me douse. And he's like, okay, I'll watch you douse like I said I would. Okay, you didn't douse now that I actually looked at it. Go away, you nut job. But the spirits were not in alignment.
He'll be like, fine.
Your pocket watch was interfering with my rod.
I'll put my pocket watch at home. When will the spirits be in alignment? And then the test still fails. But nothing good was coming out of that because basically he was finding people and one by one at significant cost was either getting them to realize, wow, maybe I can't douse, or just making up excuses, but it wasn't changing the world in any meaningful way. So he decided now to only go after people where they have something to lose, where the public and the press would care. And one of these groups of people are the golden ear audiophiles, the people who spend $10,000 on a wooden knob to stick on top of their volume knob to make the resonance of the crystalline quantum matrix sound better and thus make the music more playful to the ear.
Uh-huh.
Or, the $40,000 speaker cables that are actually just whatever gauge wire.
Yep.
But it's hand wound in Indonesia.
Wait, wouldn't it be better if it was hand wound in, like, Malaysia?
I don't know. All I know is that these people are idiots and they're all over the internet. And
There's a famous quote that's like, people who are into music, they listen to songs, and audiophiles listen to stereos.
Oh, so true.
Yep.
But the funny thing is, anytime someone does a test of this audiophile crap, it turns out that no human being has ever been able to hear the difference ever. Ever.
I learned this lesson early on because when I was a kid, I was watching PBS, and there was some show, I forget what the hell it was called.
Was it Nova?
No, it was started with a Z, I think. But it was when CDs were really new, right? And it was actually like a choice, like CDs or cassettes, I don't know, right?
See, I knew right away the answer was cassettes because I knew a lot about or CDs. Why did I say cassettes?
Yep.
Because I knew a lot about how cassettes worked, and I knew that it was really shitty, and making cassettes sucked.
Yep.
Once I knew what bias was and why I had to use it, But anyway.
But anyway, of course, CDs are better. However, what they did is they did a test of all these kids, and they had the kids come in blindfolded, and they had 4 boom boxes, and 2 of them had cassettes, and 2 of them had CDs, right? And they actually did like CDs. Well, I think they were all CD/cassette boom boxes, right? And they had 4 of them. And the kids would come in, and they try to, say which was better and which was worse. And in the end, cassette or CD didn't matter. All that mattered was which boombox it was. And the boombox that looked the shittiest actually was the best. And it was because it had better speakers that were wooden. And it didn't look as fancy as the other ones, but apparently it got more "that sounds betters" than the other ones did. And it didn't matter if it was CD or cassette. The cassettes in that one sounded better than CDs in the other one. And then I learned, a lot of people are going to trick you into thinking things sound better when they don't.
Yep, and taken to the extreme now, people will buy $40,000 speakers that don't sound better than $50 speakers.
And other people will make $40,000 without having to work.
You know how many times Scott and I have been tempted to just be con men? Yeah, I
can start the audiophile business.
You know how easy it would be? I could talk.
Go to Radio Shack. Then write a story. Put the story on a piece of paper in a box with the shit I bought at Radio Shack. Resell. Mark up the price times 1,000.
It would be so easy. But yeah, James Randi is going after these people and pretty much saying, he's going after a bunch of specific ones. If in any double-blind test you can find any statistically significant correlation between any of your products and a preference from listeners, we'll give you $1 million.
Yep.
And funny how they're not taking him up on it.
Oh, yeah, it's real funny. I mean, is there any... He's basically saying, if you can prove this difference, he's targeting a specific cable maker.
Yeah, and he's saying, if your cables are actually better, we'll give you $1 million because you're so awesome.
He's even, he's comparing them against monster cables, which are still a ripoff. I say go all the way. Compare them against, lamp cord.
Lamp cord is some of the best speaker cable you're going to find.
It is. That's why I'm saying, really insult them. He's basically saying, yeah, try to beat monster cable. He should say, try to beat lamp cord. Because lamp cord is really good. I should get some from Home Depot. It's cheaper than anything at Radio Shack.
Things of the day. So this might be a little old. I've seen videos like this before. People at RIT did something similar, but nearly not as awesome.
I have seen many similar pranks in my day.
But this one is just so well done, and also it uses one of my favorite disco songs.
It is the perfect execution of the idea.
In fact, I think it's the best execution I've ever seen.
I agree.
So imagine if you're just, you're bored in college. What are you going to do? Obviously, pull a prank. So you get 2 of your friends. You got 3 people. Get into an elevator. Boombox playing Born to Be Alive. Not the Hitler remix, but the original. Born to Be Alive. And a disco ball and some lights.
To be alive.
And you dress up in polyester. And you have a disco party in that elevator all day.
I love doing shit in elevators like that. I mean,
when we first got to RIT, I remember I went to visit in another building and the elevator opens. And there's just a guy sitting in a lawn chair in the elevator. And he says, "Hey." And I say, "Hey," and I get in, and he says, "So how you liking RIT so far?" And I'm like, "It's okay. I met some weird guy sitting in an elevator." He's like, "Yeah, they'll do that." And then I got off on the 3rd floor, and it was just...
Good times.
I love that kind of prank. This video is so worth watching.
I miss the days when I would see unexpected things like that in my life on a daily basis.
Remember when we came home that one day, and there was just a burning couch outside of our apartment? And I remember all I thought was, I hope that's the only one. And we just walked past it and went in. And then an hour later, we came out and it finished burning. There was the campus safety guy looking at it, obviously thinking, I wonder who set this on fire.
Good times. Good times.
Or that crazy guy who wore a Viking hat for a year and a half.
I know that guy.
I know that guy too.
Yeah. Oh, I think you might know him.
You may know him very well. So what do you got for me?
Speaking of the college times.
Oh boy.
People in college, they're pretty bored. And they'll think of things to do, They'll play some hacky sack. They'll play some kickball.
Some quarters. Man, I won $40 playing quarters.
All right. They'll play some frisbee, all right?
Ultimate frisbee.
Yep. What if they get really bored and they're inside with the frisbee? What do you do then? Well, this is what you do. You play a game that these people call GlaxoSmithKline. No relation to the pharmaceutical company. The way the game works is step 1, you get a table. Step 2, you get a frisbee. Hopefully a good frisbee. Step 3, you get some grease.
Grease me up, woman.
Step 4, grease the table completely.
Okie dokie.
Step 5, spin frisbee sideways on table. Get 4 people around the table, and much like hacky sack, keep that frisbee spinning. And you watch this video of these people doing this, and I'm like, hey, that's good times right there.
You know, there's something
They even document all the different techniques they come up with.
That's exactly what I was gonna get to. There's something about that college thing where you're so bored that you'll come up, you and your friends, with a new sport, whatever it may be, and then you'll proceed to play that sport obsessively until you are probably the best 4 people in the world at that sport.
I think they're the only 4 people in the world at that.
Exactly. And at that point, you have all the strategies, you have names for the different possible moves. Like, I did.
Yeah, where do you think, skateboarders, they call things like, you're doing the
reverse ollie.
The ollie something and the
720 handstand.
Yeah, or in figure skating, they'll be like the Lutz something and the something else. Where do you think those names came from? The first guy to do it was like, oh, look at this, I'm gonna do he does something. You're like, I'm gonna call it the something.
Chess is the same way.
And
You got the Polish opening, my favorite opening, even though I've never fucking won with it ever, but I like it.
Yep. So this one, they've got the wall and the slide and the hop and the whatever. And these guys have got the right idea.
There's just something to be said for making up a sport and then being really good at it.
Yep.
Almost like air hockey.
So if you've got a table, you don't mind getting greasy and a frisbee.
How did they get the grease off?
A towel.
Grease doesn't come off so easy.
Towel, grease remover.
I imagine that table never recovered, and they probably are going to throw it away.
It's a pretty shitty table looking at it.
Well,
I think what they should have done is they should have had a square table. The table's sort of rectangular. With a square table, then all the players would be sort of equal, and also they could sort of change the sport into, instead of how long can the 4 of us keep this up, to knock it off the other guy's side. Sort of like Warlords.
Oh, man, that's a good reference.
Uh-huh.
We got to review that game.
Yeah.
That's a damn good game.
Warlords is a good game. It needs to be brought back. 3D Warlords.
Right, so the show might be a little different from usual shows because it's mostly going to be me talking and Scott going, what? Wow. Huh.
Or, wow, you're stupid.
Yeah. Well, because you might have noticed that there was no show last Thursday and last Wednesday was a cop-out. That's because, for various reasons, I was in Arizona from Wednesday night until, not too long ago.
In the desert. In the middle of nowhere.
I've never been west of Chicago in my life until I flew to Arizona.
I haven't been west of Novi, Michigan, unless you count Israel as west. But I went east to get there, so I don't count that.
Wow, yeah, that's right. When we drove out to Novi, that crazy land where at 4 in the morning you were staring out at the freeway from the window and bitching about how many cars and where the fuck are those people going at 4 in the morning and why are there so many of them?
Mm-hmm.
But it was a good time. I think we've talked about that trip enough. But I was in Arizona, and I think I'm just going to kind of chronologically talk about my trip because I noticed a lot of interesting things. So first off, I'd like to say this is the first time in my life since high school when I flew to Florida to march in the Citrus Bowl that I flew in a plane without incident. Nothing bad happened. My flight wasn't delayed. Nothing weird happened. I got 4 bags of animal crackers, a Coke and a tonic water.
You know why that was?
Because I flew JetBlue.
Because you listened to me and you flew the JetBlue instead of flying whatever crap you were flying before.
Well, the reason I flew whatever crap I was flying before is because JetBlue didn't fly to all the places I was trying to fly.
Well, they're a domestic airline. They only fly where it's profitable, which is what you wanted, right? You didn't want the airlines to fly where it's not profitable.
It's both cheaper and easier to fly to Tucson, Arizona, or Phoenix, Arizona, than it is to fly to Detroit, which is much closer.
Yep. JetBlue started out as, we're going to have all the same planes. We're going to have flights that get out on time.
They've actually got 2 kinds of planes now.
With less weight. That was originally, though. Less waiting.
Thing is, they only have 2 kinds of planes, and the planes are very similar.
Yep. And they're going to, not give you the crap food on the plane because you don't want it anyway, and it would cost too much to give you food you actually want.
Instead, I got animal
crackers and water.
Or cashews.
Yep. And... we're going to give you a TV in every seat, and there's no first class. It's just coach all the way through. There's 1 class, and it's pretty nice class. It's not quite coach. It's not quite first class. It's normal class. And they started expanding, and it totally worked. And while nowadays they're still not as cheap as they used to be because of rising fuel costs and whatnot, as a whole, JetBlue, in my experience, is still a less stressful flying experience than any other domestic airline.
And pretty much, I just got to say, if you ever drive to JFK, except in very specific circumstances,
Parking's a lot of money.
You're probably stupid because not only is it cheaper, faster, easier, and nicer to take AirTrain to wherever you're going, but it's just better. There's no reason to drive to JFK, even if you have luggage.
Well, like my dad would drive me there, let me off, and then go away.
That's okay,
Yeah,
but if
you
you're
don't
going
wanna park
yourself...
there.
So I just took Metro North to Grand Central. Then I took the 6 train up to 51st Street. I took the E train all the way across to Jamaica. Then I got off there, got right on AirTrain, took me right to my terminal, got off, checked my bags, right there. And then I had a really crappy burrito in the terminal.
Oh, you don't want to eat that food in the terminal.
I was
Except
hungry.
There's one place in the JetBlue terminal there where you can get like mad French toast for breakfast. But that's it. You don't want to eat in the terminal otherwise.
Yeah, well, there was a sushi place, and I really wanted it, but it was way too expensive, and I imagined it wasn't that good.
Oh, yeah. They do have that really big convenience store there that sells like half touristy crap, but also half useful stuff.
I bought a Naked Juice there, and I bought some cookies for the plane.
I usually buy gum there.
Yeah. But I'm glad I didn't eat at the sushi place, because when I got off in Tucson, 3 hours later, I can't believe how fast we flew to Arizona. Even the pilot got on. He's like, yeah, there was a tailwind. We're here stupidly early, just so you know. But the exact same sushi place was in the terminal in Tucson.
That's how those things go. Like when you go to the rest stops on the highway, they all have the same places.
Yep.
Places you don't see in normal places because otherwise no one would eat at them.
So I got picked up at the airport, and one thing I like to notice is it was a lot fucking hotter in Yonkers than it was in Arizona. God damn.
Well, maybe was it actually temperature-wise hotter, or was it just feel hotter?
Well, it was both. Because one, it was like 10 or 11 when I got to Arizona. So it was cooled off to like 75, 80 degrees.
That makes sense.
But it was like 90 in Yonkers.
Yeah, people always tell you, like, oh, in the desert, it's really cold at night. Well, maybe, but I was in the desert in Israel, which is a real desert, and at night, it was still warm.
It depends on what part of the desert and when. But I got to say, even during the day, when it was, 90, 95 degrees, whatever, it was really nice. I was never uncomfortably hot the entire time there.
Yeah, I mean, in Israel, again, because it's my only desert experience, I walked through the desert for the whole day.
You can't walk through 10 deserts.
I walked through the desert for like an entire day and then part of another entire day. I think maybe even 2.5 days. I don't remember.
Well, people always say it's not the heat, it's the humidity. That's 100% true.
Yeah, I never got like tired, like I was gonna fall over. Well, that's because I was drinking water. But regardless of that, that feeling of like, water, the stereotypical cartoon guy in the desert that's all parched. It never felt bad walking the desert. I was just walking and drinking water and walking. And the water was warm and it didn't feel good to drink it, but I just kept walking and I didn't feel tired at any time.
I always say I like really hot weather. And a lot of people balk at that. But I gotta say, if it was always 95 degrees and 2% relative humidity, I would be a happy rim. I can tell you what. It was so nice out there.
As long as the showers are cold and there's a refrigerator somewhere, it's
even
all
if they're
good.
not, I was just perfectly comfortable the whole time. I didn't even work up a sweat except when I was, cleaning out the horse's water and giving the goats some hay.
Yeah. Let me tell you something else. We're talking about animals. Camels, right? You get to, like, when you're in the desert in Israel, you get to ride the camel.
They're really cool, but they smell bad and they'll spit on you.
No, not really. Riding them is not comfortable. You're better off walking. Notice how whenever you see a picture of a guy with a camel, all his cargo is on the camel, and he's walking with the camel like held on a leash. That's because riding the camel sucks. It bounces up and down and hurts your ass.
My grandpa told me the same thing. It's like you lean so far back, you feel like you're going to fall off. Then you lean so far forward, you feel like you're going to fall off. Then the camel stops and scratches itself. Then you lean so far back, you feel like you're going to fall off.
Riding on a camel you're better off walking.
We didn't deal with any
camels. It's not like the camel
camels.
goes fast either. I mean, if it went fast, you'd be all right, but it doesn't. That's why you want a desert horse. Because that's comfortable and goes fast.
Well, also, desert horse, you can ululate and then sweep down upon the caravan, slaughter them all with scimitars, and take their trade goods.
That's what I'm talking about. As long as there's an oasis to have the horse drink water at.
Yeah, and if the oasis dries up, well, you better invade another one.
That's right.
Right.
With beautiful women.
So I see my mom, and I get picked up, and I get back to the house. And I got to say, I haven't seen my parents yet out in the desert, but They have a beautiful freaking house in the middle of nowhere, like an hour out of Tucson, near this town called Benson. But Benson's even not that close. They have this beautiful, like, Southern Mexican-American, Spanish-American villa.
Well, desert, buying a house, most of the cost is the land, and desert land costs nothing.
But it looks like it fits in with the land so well. It's got this beautiful terrace outside. It's gigantic. They've got like a covered shed and all this stuff.
Houses like that are real easy to make.
Tons
and
of
real
land.
cheap. And there's a desert, so it's not like a natural disaster is going to destroy it.
And my parents are really cool, so they don't have a green lawn or anything. They have whatever grew there. Granted, they're doing a lot of work. They pulled up all the prickly vines and all the bad things, and they burn the brush every few days.
They got a cactus?
There's cactuses all over, but mostly it's just, desert trees and desert brush.
I gotta have a big cactus in the front lawn. Just like if I live in Florida, I gotta have a palm tree.
You realize that when those cactuses get to the point where they grow like their two little happy arms coming out the side, they're already hundreds of years old. It's such a fucking crime to harm a cactus there. You wouldn't believe.
I know, but that's why I'd build my house where the front lawn would be where the cactus already is.
But the land is big, and the dogs freaking love it out there. And I haven't seen those dogs in, years. I love those dogs. I grew up with some of those dogs, and I'm very proud that the dogs remembered me.
You don't know if they remembered you. They could have just been like, it's a man.
No,
man.
they remembered me. They acted quite differently from the way they acted around my Uncle Mike.
Uh-huh.
But they came out, and they have all this land, and the Keeley, the little Irish setter, showed me around the property. Like, she took me out and showed me, like, the whole perimeter, and every time I'd stop, she, like, came back and said, come on, and grabbed me and made me follow her. And Riley just, like, apparently there's this spot where this tortoise comes through every few days. And the tortoise either isn't smart enough to realize that there's a dog there, or the tortoise just wants a ride, because apparently Riley this big Irish setter, goes to the spot and always checks. And if he finds this tortoise, he picks it up and runs around with it like a football for like an hour and then tosses it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But driving in, I got to say, we're coming down this desert road. There's no light. We're kicking up dust. I saw like 40 jackrabbits running out of the way and kicking and jumping and stomping. And then later on, I get to, right near the house, and a quail walks by. And I've never seen a quail in person other than in the zoo, but quails are really cute when they run, because they just kind of run like bit straight across, and they make these really great noises. And there were like 200 or 300 quail, and they just kept coming. And then every time I tried to drive by, they ran one way or the other across the road.
I don't think I've ever seen a quail.
You know what a quail looks like, with a little like bobbly coming out of the top of his head, like Quail Man?
I've seen cartoons of quails.
Have you seen Quail Man?
Yes.
Well, they look a lot like that.
I figured.
They're really, really cute.
All right.
And of course, my mom, I heard talk, but I hadn't met it. They have a horse, and it's one of the cutest horses I've ever seen. She's a half Arabian, half quarter horse, and she's this really dark
Not a long horse?
No, quarter horse, not like a long cat. And she's really smart and really sweet and really pretty, and she's just this beautiful horse. And I spent a lot of time just brushing her and feeding her and cleaning out her stall, because I wanted to do that. And I gotta say, like, by the second morning, getting up and, carrying hay out to the horse and brushing the horse and cleaning out the water trough and then giving hay to all the goats. And the goats are really friendly. They're just like dogs. They want to play with you. And taking the dogs out, and, I could see myself living that life. Just getting up every morning, gathering the brush, burning it, feeding the animals. I could live that life. I could be one of those pioneer in the desert type guys. Drive into town once a week with a pickup truck, buy a bunch of hay, don't even have to pay because everyone knows me. They know I'll pay at some point.
Yeah, I don't think I can live that life.
The only thing is, I realized not too long after I got there that in the entire state of Arizona, you cannot get pizza. There is no pizza worth eating in that entire state.
The whole state?
As far as I can tell from everyone I talk to, no one in Arizona knows how to make pizza.
They don't know bread, sauce, cheese?
One, the water's kind of bad out there. Two, one place we went to...
There's such rapid communication in the world now, didn't it?
One place we went to, it's like they opened a pizza place. So you order pizza, and they give it to you in a styrofoam box.
Won't the styrofoam melt and then get on the pizza? And
even if it doesn't, that's going to be one soggy-ass pizza by the time it gets to you.
It sure is.
And a lot of them, they just don't put yeast in the pizza, so it ends up being like this flatbread, but it's not good flatbread, it's just crappy flatbread.
How they could go on the internet and look up pizza recipe.
They just don't think to. I don't know.
I don't understand this. It's a known solved problem. What do people like?
I don't get it. But at the same token, I can get good Mexican food anywhere for no money. And I learned something. I ate at a bunch of different Mexican places, authentic Mexican food, real Mexican food.
With Mexicans.
You know what? It tastes the same as the Cafe Maya.
Yeah.
100%. That made me so happy because my mom was like, you can't get good Mexican food up there. And everything I tried was like, you know what? This is exactly like the Cafe Maya up near us.
But you know what? We have one place that has, Mexican food, right? Like they have everywhere. They have 0 places that have pizza like we have here.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you?
Yeah, but at the same
If we
time,
make pizza down there the way we make it here, we could charge a lot of money for it because I'm sure the Cafe Maya charges a lot more money for that food than the places down there charge.
I think the reason for that is just simply that it's not so much because we live outside of Arizona or that Arizona's weird. It's just that we live in downstate New York City where we can get authentic food from pretty much anywhere in the world if we want.
Yeah.
I mean, we want Somalian food, we want Brazilian food,
I mean,
South
they don't even
American
have
food.
Pizza Hut in Arizona.
Pizza Hut's not pizza. That's like saying Taco Bell is tacos.
I know, but I mean, it'd be better than the stuff that you're talking about.
The other thing I noticed driving in, there was a surprising number of Japanese or
Sbarro's is almost pizza.
Japanese or quote unquote Japanese or sushi restaurants. Like a disturbing number between the edge of town and the airport. I saw no less than 35 sushi restaurants. 35. I counted.
Mm-hmm.
And one, I wonder where they get their sushi from.
That is a good question. That can't be the freshest fishes.
I imagine they
in
freeze
a desert.
it and
Fishes,
fly
desert.
it. Yeah.
Fishes, desert.
There's no fishes in the desert. Fishes in the sea. Chickens on the land.
There's no chickens in the desert either.
Actually, there are a lot of them.
Where? What are they eating?
They're eating seed that you put out for them.
Okay.
Actually, a lot of my parents' neighbors have a bunch of chickens. And I'm trying to convince, because my mom wants to start milking the goats and make goat cheese, which I'm all about. And I'm trying to convince them to get some chickens, too, because there's certain breeds of chickens that do really well in the desert. And I know my mom would take great care of those chickens.
Yeah, but I don't like goat cheese.
What's wrong with you? Goat cheese is awesome.
Plus, as much as you would study to make, like, even if I made goat cheese and studied on the internet how to make it, I don't trust it not to be diseased.
Apparently, it's not that hard to make. I talked to some locals, and a lot of them do it. And my mom actually works with this Russian woman who has been pestering her constantly. You have a goat and you're not milking it? What the hell is wrong with you? I'll come and milk it. Just give me that milk. Goddamn.
Crazy Russian woman. Watch out.
But actually, I ate some Russian food because the woman made us a Russian lunch, and it was they were meatballs, but they were Russian meatballs. I gotta ask what spices she used because it didn't taste like anything I've ever eaten before. But it was awesome. Like, super awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have any Vodak to go with it, but oh well.
They don't have Vodak in Arizona?
I'll admit, I don't know much about Russian food. I kind of imagine it's similar to Polish food, and the only other thing I can think of is the stereotype of caviar and vodka.
Well,
and I know
a lot of Eastern European foods, while not, exactly identical from country to country, are very similar. It's sort of like a gradient. Like it's like you go east, and then as you go, the far east, like I guess Siberia, and as you go west, the food changes a little bit more and a little bit more.
I guess it's kind of like in France.
More.
I mean,
and then like you get to Poland, and it's it's
food
still...
in northern France and food in southern France is all French, but it's very different. But yet, if you go from south to north, like it changes a little bit every town you go to along the way.
Yep. So that's what it's sort of like.
But the scary thing is, aside from there being a lot of Japanese food, there was a lot of fake Japanese food. Like, I looked at some of these places, and they had sushi, and they had, Japanese food I like, but some of these places, they're like, yes, Asian Japanese bowl house. And I looked inside, and it was just a Chinese restaurant, or even worse, they had dishes like Asian bowl that had rice and stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
And even my mom, because my mom doesn't like that kind of food very much, but she was like, yeah, those places are no good, but people around here love them.
Really?
Yeah. I'll get to people eating around there, because I noticed something disturbing. But aside from all that, one other thing I noticed...
People eating the pizza that's not real?
There aren't a lot of national chains. Like, there weren't a lot of McDonald's, and there weren't a lot of Burger
Well, did you go to,
Kings.
like, a heavily populated area?
I did. I also asked I went through, like, Tucson, which is a big city. Mm-hmm. I also just talked to a lot of people, and people who Phoenix, my parents, and I asked around. It was weird, and my mom was asking me, because...
No Walmart?
There's Walmart.
Okay.
But I'm talking about food-wise.
Not that I like that, but just,
Yeah, but she even asked me, I'm asking a lot, and it's weird how I paid attention to things that I wouldn't have paid attention to if I'd gone there previously, just because I do Geeknights, and I kind of looked at a lot of things from a sort of journalistic side. Like I thought about what am I going to say about this experience when I came back? And it's weird how just doing this show has kind of changed the way I look at the world. I pay attention to a lot of things I otherwise wouldn't have cared about. But while there aren't a lot of McDonald's and Burger Kings all over the place, there's a lot of really, really, really specific niche only from a certain part of the world or certain part of America chains there. Like, there was a Little Caesars pizza.
Wow.
I've never seen...
Did it have actual pizza?
Yes.
Or,
it tasted exactly like Little Caesars pizza. Which,
so it was the best pizza in Arizona is what you're saying.
Yeah. While Little Caesars pizza is not good from a pizza perspective, I love Little Caesars pizza because I grew up on
I'm pretty
that
sure
stuff.
if you went to like a baseball stadium or something or the football stadium, you might have been able to get real pizza.
Possibly, but at every place
Like
I
in
went...
Phoenix, I gotta
My
imagine.
mom has been looking around because she
I gotta
likes
imagine
pizza.
there's pizza in Phoenix somewhere.
Yeah, but it's hard to find. You have to go to like a fancy Italian restaurant, and they'll make you a good pizza.
Uh-huh.
But there was a Little Caesars, and there's Jack in the Box, which wasn't really common elsewhere, but in the cities, there was a couple of them. And so many of these little chains that I found out why from all the locals that most of the people living in Arizona, especially in the cities, are not Arizona natives. They're transplants from all over the country who just decided, screw it, I'm done with this snow bullshit, I'm moving to Arizona.
Yep, a lot of old people move out there, just as many as move to Florida.
And those people are kind of adventurous. A lot of them don't like, normal fast food, whatever, but at the same time, they miss whatever their local thing was. So there's a lot of money in finding out where people came from in Arizona and making whatever local chain. My mom wrote to White Castle and was like, you should open a White Castle here. Oh my God. And you know what they said? You know how many letters we get? We're trying.
What do you mean? Are they trying to come up to the health standard or what?
Actually, that's a problem. Because remember our friend Kate's trying to get Wegmans out, in New York around here. The problem is just, White Castle or Wegmans or whatever have distributors in a certain area. You got to get similar distributors in other places, and sometimes that's hard to do.
Yeah, you got to have a truck show up every day with new White Castles.
Yeah, but White Castle...
truck has to come from somewhere.
But White Castle was seriously...
a warehouse, you can't have a whole warehouse just for one White Castle. You need to open a whole bunch of White Castles to support that warehouse, and it takes a lot of time to set up that warehouse. And then how does this stuff get to that warehouse from some other warehouse that's bigger?
Just the fact that White Castle responded right away, it was like, seriously, we know. Oh my God.
That's probably their form letter.
No, they told her, we've gotten 4 other specific letters about this in the past month. Believe me, we will tell you when one comes.
Uh-huh.
But, I was just thinking about that because actually I'm really hungry right now. And I kind of want
I'm also the hunger.
I kind of want a White Castle. The hunger.
No.
But, now, my mom brought this up long before I made any observation. And, even Emily's been making fun of me because lately whenever someone's in my way, I'm always like, yeah, fat people. And a lot of times I almost say it, not even in the, fat people, but it's like a generic term for people in my way. Like, not fat of the body, but fat of the mind. And I use the word more than I should.
Fat of the character.
Yeah. Like, there are fat people who are jolly and awesome. And there are skinny people who are indignant and crappy. And I gotta pick a better word, I guess. But I'm never gonna complain about fat people as in obese in New York State again. Because good fucking...
Even if you're at IBM and there's a lady taking up the entire hallway?
Because that was only one lady. Good fucking God. Are the majority of people, other than, the workers, the Mexican workers and the laborers, they're so fat, and there's so many of them. And my mom was when I came, she's like, man... You won't believe how many people are fat around here. And I was like, whatever, oh my God. The majority of human beings I saw were scared, not a little overweight, because, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm talking medically, dangerously, scarily obese.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them are also transplants. And the thing I don't get is, why'd they move to the desert? How can they bear it? It's so hot, and they're so big.
I'm trying to look up, what's the fattest state in
Mississippi.
the US. I know, but I'm trying to look up, a list. I know Mississippi's the fattest, but I want to see, the second, third, fourth.
I don't remember. All I know is that...
Colorado's the leanest.
Yeah, and New York City is actually, the leanest urban center. But the thing is, there's nothing wrong with being a little fat or a little, chubby or whatever, because, not everyone has to be rail thin. But if you weigh more than 200 pounds more than you should, something's wrong.
Okay, so I don't have the numbers for Arizona, right? But apparently Arizona has less than 25% adult obesity. Mississippi has 29.5%.
See, now that's the thing. The the illegals, because there's a lot of them, and I even talked to a few, but I'm not going to, because the opinions in Arizona are very mixed about that. It's kind of interesting, because on one hand, they're like, a lot of people I talk to were, yeah, I don't want them coming in illegal. But at the other hand, they're like, I really want them to come in legally because they work really hard and they're really, really nice people.
So looking at the map of the states that have more than 25% adult obesity.
All in the Southwest or
No,
Southeast?
it's pretty much Michigan. It's like straight south.
People are super fat in Michigan.
Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas. So
You know
Michigan
what it is?
down to Texas, straight
You know
line.
what it is?
And then South Carolina and West Virginia also.
That's it. That's where all the corn is.
Yeah, but even that's where the corn is. The same amount of corn gets eaten everywhere.
Maybe, but maybe there's more corn there. Maybe there's corn in the air.
I think it's just the lifestyle of the Midwest
Yeah.
is the most sit around do nothingest.
Yeah.
The most drivingest, the least walkingest.
Oh, that's the other thing. I gotta say, when I was going, 85 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour, and I saw a cop, and I go, ah, shit, and I slow down to 75, and my mom says, why'd you slow down? You weren't speeding. And even better, the cop I passed wasn't even a cop. It was Border Patrol. They don't care if someone's going 150. They're just watching for
Unless
illegal
you got
immigrants.
150 full of Mexicans.
Yeah. But really, the whole, immigration debate down there, being down there really puts a different perspective on it. Because on one hand, they really are putting a big strain on the educational system and on the healthcare system. But at the same time, and no one I talked to disagreed, they're really nice people and they work really hard. And everyone I talked to really wanted a system where they could come here legally. As long as they weren't let in illegally, they should be citizens and they should get help and they should, get classes to learn English. And the sentiment among a lot of those people was that and this is the sentiment of those people. I'm not going to say my opinion either way, but I'm just going to paraphrase. Those people work a lot harder and try a lot harder
Than the fat people?
No, than a lot of people who were born in this country. And a lot of those people probably deserve to be here more than a lot of people who live here now.
That's for sure.
And I don't know how I feel. I mean, it's a complicated issue, but it's interesting to hear the perspectives of people who are actually down there, dealing with this problem.
Yeah.
But at the same time, while there's a lot of problems with people not speaking English, most people down there speak English. In fact, more of the people I talked to, even some illegal immigrants, spoke more English than people running the White Castles up in the Bronx. Yeah, I could probably talk for another hour. I don't want to bore everyone, but Arizona, at least, Tucson out in the middle of the desert, is a really nice place. And I'll save this for another time because I got a whole show I can do about my childhood because my mom I found all the things that I've left with my parents from when I was a kid. All the essays I wrote. I read a Christmas list that I wrote when I was in 4th grade.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff is mostly at my parents' house, and a lot of it's thrown out and whatever.
My mom gave me my high school class ring, which on one side has a picture of a trumpet, and on the other side has a picture of a dragon.
I've just always had mine. It's over there. I think it has like a computer on one side and then something else on the other side.
The best thing was my mom gave me a bunch of pictures I had, and one of them was a photograph of my bedroom in high school. And I'm going to scan that in and kind of put a bunch of call-out boxes to point out, because I was such a dork. In this picture, offhand from memory, visible are like 40 Forgotten Realms books.
Forgotten Realms.
So many pewter dragons and wizards and crystals.
I never wasted money on those.
A wizard staff, a bastard sword, a bunch of Atari games, all the manga I owned, which constituted a good majority of the manga in the state of Michigan, like displayed prominently as prized possessions.
I had comic books in those days.
All
the
of
old,
Sailor
crappy
Moon,
kind.
along with End of Evangelion in fan sub form. A big, Les Miserables poster, 2 Star Wars posters, one of which is tasteful, one of which is 14-year-old tasteful.
14-year-old tasteful.
It was so nostalgic. The fridge that was full of Dr. Pepper and nothing more.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of weird. Is like when was the last time you were in that house? Like a zillion years ago. It's like I was in that. It was in my bedroom. I had the same bedroom since I was like 3. And it's still there, and I still go to it, and it's largely intact.
Yeah.
I mean, my brother lived in it alone for a few years, so he messed it up and made it sort of his, but most of my stuff is still there, so it's kind of like seeing a picture of it is like, what, I was just there.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Right, I'm not going to go any longer. We've gone kind of long, and yeah, Arizona was awesome. Once I get the pictures developed, I say developed because I couldn't find the charger to my camera in time, so I just bought a disposable camera out there, and now I
You
gotta...
should have bought a disposable digital. You could hack it to reuse it.
One, I couldn't find any, and two, yeah.
Not even at CVS?
So I've got this archaic thing where I have to go to a store, and they're going to use a chemical process to get pictures off of it.
Such poison, those chemicals.
And then I'm going to have to scan them in. It's weird.
Such smelliness, the chemicals.
But I'll post them when I get a chance. And don't forget to send us in your questions, and the show will resume on Monday.
That was an easy show for me.
Yeah, it was. This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geek Nights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.